And we welcome you into another edition of Back Your Play with Q. As always, I am your host, Rich Quiñones. We've got 60 minutes to play with. Very busy show as we start to look at week 2 in the NFL. And if you guys are just joining us for the first time, BYP, it's a very fast-paced, rapid-fire sports betting show. We provide a lot of in-depth insight analysis as well as some weekly guests. And we always want to remind everyone out there that BYP is for entertainment purposes only. Lloyd Vance is going to join us in a couple moments, and we always want to say hello to our good friends over at NY48 WWON in New York, as you guys can capture us every Sunday, 11 a.m. 12 p.m., and perhaps on Saturdays going forward. We don't know. We are trying to work that out with the good folks over at NY48, but we're so happy and blessed to be on their network and channel. We'll also give you a little insight on how to view us on there going forward. We always like to say get social with myself. It's pretty easy to do at Rich Q on Q on X and of course on IG, TikTok Rich Q on the mic. And week 2 is among us in the NFL. And last Thursday night, I should say, you had a pretty interesting affair between the Washington Commanders and the Green Bay Packers. Both teams suffered some really brutal injuries. Austin Eckler out perhaps for the rest of the season with the Washington Commanders with he's feared to have a torn ACL. And then to add insult to injury for the Packers, who their offense was really clicking, it does appear that wide receiver Jaden Reed broke his collarbone in that week 2 win for the Green Bay Packers. And look, this is a team right now, if you talk about the odds going forward, especially in the NFC and really Super Bowl odds, 2 very impressive wins to start the season for the Green Bay Packers. Make no mistake about it. 2 very impressive wins. You take care of a Detroit Lions squad that was one of the best in the NFC, and then you turn around and you really just dismantle a Washington Commanders squad that made it all the way to the NFC Championship. And on Thursday night, they were able to harass Jaden Daniels, who did not play particularly well. Jordan Love had an outstanding contest, close to 300 total yards. They ran the ball well. They easily covered the number. They win at 27-18, and they moved to 2-0. And the Commanders now sit at 1-1. Feel good after they beat the Giants, open up the season, come back down to earth a little bit during Thursday Night Football against a very good Green Bay team. All right, so as we start to look at some of these games I mentioned, Lloyd's going to join us in a couple moments. Lloyd Vance, our good friend and host of Lloyd Vance's Insider Football on Sports Radio 102.9 FM, The Game, and of course, Coastal Sports Digital Network. Some of these 1 o'clock games, they don't have a ton of juice, but there are some games that I definitely want to highlight. Jacksonville's 1-0, and they take care of a team that I thought was going to be an upstart team in the Carolina Panthers. In week 1, they had to deal with all the lightning and the delays and all that kind of stuff with the weather. They easily cover that number. And then you get Cincinnati that escapes against Cleveland because Cleveland's kicker turns around and misses a field goal and an extra point. And that was the difference. And that very, very close win for Cincinnati, close loss for Cleveland, 17-16. So obviously Cincinnati doesn't cover the number in that one. But in this contest, look, I think this is going to be an opportunity. Cincinnati's laying 3.5. The total is 48.5. I think they're going to be able to move the football. I think they're going to be able to score as well. I think Cincinnati can throw. It appears that Jacksonville is going to give some more snaps, both offense and defense, to Hunter. So we'll see what this kid can do. Jacksonville's offense at times can be very anemic. As I mentioned, they did get the win, but they are a 3.5-point road dog in this one. Giants and the Cowboys. There's already talk. Brian Daboll, head coach of the Giants, already enlisted and entrusted Russell Wilson to be the starter for week number 2. Now, is this going to be the end of Russell Wilson's career in the NFL as far as a starting quarterback? Is this his last start in the NFL? This is a pretty large line when you think about it. 6, 5.5. I saw it go up as high as 6.5 with DK right now. The total is 44.5. We know the Giants' offense was very anemic in that week 1 loss to Washington. We also know that the Dallas Cowboys, they hung around against the Philadelphia Eagles, defending Super Bowl champs. Micah Parsons already making his impact with Green Bay. You can run a little bit on that defense. So if you're the Giants, this can be a great opportunity to try to get that run game going. Now, there's still no Andrew Thomas on that offensive line. So you're trying to anchor that offensive line. And again, never a good thing, right? You got the issues with Malik Neighbors, who basically was saying that, okay, I'm a diva wide receiver. Just get me the friggin' football. Here's the stat to know. In divisional games, Dak Prescott is 33-9, second best mark any starting quarterback since AFL NFL merger. And that only trails Patrick Mahomes, who's 35-6, 854 winning percentage. Now, I think Scadaboo offensively for the Giants is going to get some carries, is going to get some passes out of the backfield. I don't like the Giants in the spot at all. But if you're trying to hang your hat on something, Russell Wilson, 17-8 ATS in his career as at least a 4-point underdog. I think Dallas is going to score about 28-30 in this one. And I see the Giants offense being very limited one more time. And I just don't like the spot for the Giants. I think Dallas easily covers this one, and then the Giants start to look ahead to Jackson Dart and perhaps the Jackson Dart era. The Bears and the Lions, oh my. Detroit at home is a heavy 6.5-point favorite in this one. Total is 46.5. And, the Bears had an opportunity to win, to open up the season on Monday Night Football. J.J. McCarthy, in his debut on the road from Minnesota, goes off with 21 points in the fourth quarter. His legs did a lot of the damage in that one, but he also threw a very pretty ball. That's a bad loss for the Bears. Now, all of a sudden, you got to go on the road again, back-to-back divisional opponents. That's a brutal way to start the season. I mean, think about it. You go to Minnesota, you lose that one, or I should say you host Minnesota, you lose that one, 27-24. Now you got to go on the road to Detroit, a team that's ticked off because they didn't even show up defensively against the Green Bay Packers in week one. So they're going to be ticked off as well. So this might be one of those spots, if you're a Bears fan, it's not the best spot to be in. And if you're a Lions fan, you say, okay, this is kind of where we're going to lick our chops a little bit and we're going to take advantage of this opportunity, and we're going to be able to move the football, put up some points. Now, there's already some question marks with Caleb Williams. There's some talk, Chicago radio. A lot of fans want him benched. I think that's kind of panic mode, to be quite honest with you. They want to establish more consistency on offense. We know that, which means you got to have better play and accuracy from the quarterback. Now, you got that return, right? Johnson to Detroit. It's kind of been that topic of discussion all week long. They can ill afford to go 0-2, and it would be the first time they did that since 2021, Dan Campbell's first season. Here's a little nugget on that one. And if you're talking about anytime touchdown or fantasy nugget, you look at the back, Williams, 24.2 fantasy points against the Vikings in week one. Again, the box score doesn't tell the story at the end of the day. Campbell's 51-30 against the spread. ATS as a coach, which is best record since the AFL-NFL merger. This has the makings of a Lions winning this contest by at least 6-8. I think they cover the number. They're going to blitz big time. Now, the Bears, they can throw the ball a little bit too when Williams has time. So you want to limit the big play from the Bears. You don't want to get those chunk plays, 2, 3, 4 plays of 30-plus yard plays down the field. The Lions are going to have to blitz. They blitz 57% of the time in week one. And yeah, it could be effective. It can also increase the chances of some very explosive plays by the opposition. So that's something that they're going to have to hang their hat on going forward. But I still like, I got to be honest, I really like Detroit in this game. I can't see a scenario where they fall to 0-2. Rams and the Titans, now you get a look at home debut. Cam Ward struggled, obviously, in his rookie debut against a pretty good defense in Denver that pretty much just let him hang around. I mean, that line was 8.5. Denver doesn't cover. They win by 8 because Sean Payton elects to try to pad Bo Nix's stats late. They win it by 8. They don't cover. Should have won for the field goal. Another tough spot to open up the season for the Titans. The Rams defensively look really good. They held the Texans to just 9 points, which is saying something to open up the season in that 14-9 win. Very impressive performance defensively by the Rams. I think you're going to see this defense really just disrupt Cam Ward. And the penalties were really bad for the Titans. I mean, they got to stop, man. They got to stop. I mean, Jarvis Browler Jr., he's an aggressive corner, too many flags. You cannot give that offense of the Rams and a veteran quarterback in Matthew Stafford, you can't give them fresh set of downs. He's 3 touchdown passes shy of 381 in his career, which would tie Matt Ryan for ninth most all time. He's a hell of a quarterback. He's a future Hall of Fame quarterback. The Rams have covered 5 straight road games. That's impressive. And they typically do it with defense. So that's kind of where you want to hang your hat on that one. And they're going to blitz, they're going to blitz, they're going to blitz. All right, we're just cranking up first quarter, almost through the books. Another edition of Back Your Play. And we always encourage you guys and remind you guys it's for entertainment purposes. Gambling problem, 1-800-GAMBLER, or visit online as well, 1-800-GAMBLER.net. And of course, as always, I'm your host, Rich Quiñones, BYP. If you're just tuning in, don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment on the YouTube channel. Follow along to the wonderful folks at New York 48 WWON. And a little birdie is telling us you might get BYP Saturdays and Sundays, but we will see how that plays out. I also want to remind everyone, too, if you guys want to definitely check us out, and they say you shouldn't be doing this on the air, reading down, so to speak. But if you want to watch on WONNewyork.net/WWON48, you have Roku. You can search for Stream on Budget, and that's on Roku. You can add it to your Roku TV, Roku device, and you open up the app. You click on the features, and you'll see the Channel 48 logo. We'll put that in the show notes as well, so you guys know exactly what we're talking about. That's why I gotta write these notes down. We got our stats. I got the highlighters. You guys see, got our coffee, because as you guys know, we are presented by our good friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee. Check out on the show notes below, and you can save 20% off your first purchase of fresh roasted coffee. We know that the weather is breaking. We know it's getting a little cooler. We just got, we're in the midst of middle of September. So when the weather breaks like that and you're cooling down like that, you want a nice little hot cup of Joe, a little hot cup of coffee. Save on your first purchase. Use the below link, Back Your Play 20, and check them out online as well, freshroastedcoffee.com. All right, quick timeout. We'll come back on the other side. We'll reset the table. We are ripping through these 1 o'clock games. We'll keep giving you some of the trends and where we think these games are going to land. Last weekend, not bad when we played the percentages. The over hit on 3 games. The under was really in play in week 1. Is that going to be the theme in week 2? We'll talk a little more about that. I want to read some of your comments as well. Coming in, keep it locked in. This is another edition of Back Your Play with Q, powered by Fresh Roasted Coffee. And welcome back, everyone, to this edition of Back Your Play with Q. Rich Quiñones here. As always, get social with me at Rich Q on Q on X and IG. TikTok, Rich Q on the mic. You can like, comment, subscribe to my YouTube channel as well, at Rich Q on Q. And again, we are powered by our wonderful friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee, and we are coming to you live in living color. We are excited to not only be on X, multiple platforms, and YouTube channel, but of course, NY 48 WWO. And for me, being a native New Yorker, to be on the air in the New York area, the metropolitan area, is absolutely an honor and very humbling. So we're having a lot of fun with BYP. We have just been rolling along over the past several years, and you guys have been enjoying the show, and that's what we want to hear. Kevin C. in North Jersey chiming in on X wants to know if the Giants cover, it's going to have to be on the arm and the leg of Russell Wilson this weekend. Kevin C. is a big time Giants fan, and I just don't think Russell Wilson is that guy anymore. He looked very uncomfortable in the pocket, and I don't think he's going to be able to throw the ball down the field. He scrambled. Listen, these are divisional games, but the Dallas Cowboys have simply owned the New York Giants. The Giants, Brian Daboll's record in the NFC East, Kevin, is 4-14-1. That's not going to get it done. It's one of the reasons I think he's on that short leash. That's one of the reasons I think he is certainly on the hot seat going forward. Speaking on the hot seat, and it's really cooking down there in Miami, right off of Collins Avenue in South Beach. Mike McDaniel, the Dolphins with the no-show. We gave you that game. That was one of our Q's heavy picks, if you will, that we really backed our play in last week. Carolina outright over the Miami Dolphins. Miami Dolphins at home against New England Patriots. Both teams come in 0-1. Patriots offense stagnant against the Raiders. The Dolphins no show, and they got blown out against the Colts. Colts put up 30 plus in that one. Daniel Jones looked like a Hall of Fame quarterback. The total is 42.5, and there's a lot of rumbling and grumbling with the future of Mike McDaniel. Now, I mentioned this earlier in the week on Q. You can check out the show on demand on my YouTube channel. I think Mike McDaniel doesn't last a season. And I think there's a boatload of buzz with the name of John Gruden being floating around. John Gruden, they're trying to connect him to Florida Gators in college, and of course, Miami in the pros. Anytime you got a coach that's on the hot seat and you got a recognizable, sexy name out there, that's when the buzz begins. I don't like what I see with Miami. Tua has regressed. He's taken a lot of hits. His turnovers are alarming. You got Hill barking, right? A change is coming. You go out and you open up the season and you get waxed 33-8, and Daniel Jones throws for 270, and they run the football for $156 and they average just under 4 yards a carry, and you can't do anything offensively. I mean, Tua stunk. Tua got sacked 3 times. He was under pressure, 2 picks under duress. He didn't crack 115 yards. They didn't even run for 80 yards in that contest. They didn't. It was a bad, bad loss, and that's a bad game. And that's why I think this is a team right now. You talk about a coach on the hot seat. He is definitely a coach where the seat is just cooking, and that's not a good thing, and that's not a good place to be. And with that, we welcome in our very good friend, host of Lloyd Vance's Insider Football on Sports Radio 102.9 FM, The Game, Lloyd Vance. And Lloyd, always appreciate you joining me on this edition of BYP. And I was just saying how, we're going through some of these 1 o'clock games, and fast forward you talking about this seat getting a little hot down there, a little caliente in Miami there with Mike McDaniel. And that offense struggled against Indianapolis. Now they're going against a New England team. It's an AFC East game. We can look at the number in a moment, but how do you see this one playing out? But first, give me your thoughts on McDaniel. Does he last a season in Miami?
Oh, Q, that's a great question. I think it's going to take some time to see. This could be the way it's trending, though, around week 10, 11, where if this team continues to underperform and Tua was under duress that entire game last week and
Yep.
against Indianapolis, and Indianapolis just dominated them. They got a late touchdown and made the score look better, but it wasn't as close as a score, and they weren't protecting him. He was not driving the football down the field. And then you start talking about the internal strife on the team, particularly, Hill and his situation, and Etienne in that calf, and they're missing Armstead, and that offensive line's a mess. So, yes, I would say McDaniel on the hot seat, Chris Greer, general manager, on the hot seat. And this is, you hate to say must-win situation, but it could be, Q.
I was gonna say that for after the half of the show, but all right. So must win time in week 2. All right, so there you go. Which team needs to show up? The Dolphins in this game, they are laying a 1.5. It's a divisional game, and maybe people just think, oh, by the way, you're at home. Maybe the offense is going to cook a little bit. The one thing about New England, they hung in there against the Raiders, but maybe this is the weekend where Tua goes off. We saw what Geno Smith was able to do throwing the football last week. I mean, I know on your show you were gonna. He was in running in consideration for game balls. He threw for 362 last week. Was sacked a couple times, but listen, I don't know. Is this the game where Tua goes off a little bit and maybe the defense wakes up and they get to Drake May? Who knows? This is my look, but don't touch. I want no parts of the Miami Dolphins. I don't.
Yeah, Dolphins 1.5 point favorite, over under 43.5. So when I look at this one and kind of break it down, it's like they need to show up. And I think first and foremost, get the ball to Achane, have him set the perimeter, and then maybe drive the football down the field. We'll see if Waller's able to play in this one. He's banged up. I don't think he's going to.
What a waste.
They need to get Hill out there. They need to get Waddle out there making some plays. And then defensively, they need Chubb and Phillips and the rest of those guys on that defense to get after Drake May because he is still a young quarterback. Like to see the Patriots get the ball more to their rookie running back. He's a spectacular guy and get Diggs more touches. So it's going to be a close game. I'll go with Miami in a squeaker. You know what I mean?
Guts.
Yeah.
Guts.
And a lot of times the Patriots do not play well down in Miami. We've seen that in the past, but that may be the Tom Brady days.
Yeah.
But this is going to be an interesting game and one, I wouldn't bet on it, but it's going to be fun to watch.
I have this on the bottom scroll of the Q's ticker. The line has moved substantially. 49ers on the road against the Saints. That line was 6.5, 5.5. Obviously, the news comes down with Purdy, who's going to miss 2 to 5 weeks. Kittle's banged up. The 49ers have some serious issues. They're laying 3.5. The total is 40.5. They're going to go with Mac Jones. And, listen, you got Kittle with the hamstring, Purdy with the toe shoulder. You got Ayuk with the knee. It's a banged up team. I don't know if you give another pass to Shanahan, but this is why you bring in a guy like Mac Jones. I know people are not high on Mac Jones, but there's a reason the 49ers brought Mac Jones in. I don't think it's an indictment on Purdy. You can't really account for injuries. It stinks. It happens. He breaks the bank, and now he's injured, and he might miss a fourth of the season. But the bottom line is, if Kyle Shanahan is the quote, quarterback whisperer, well, here's an opportunity. Can you weather the storm and ride it out with a veteran in Mac Jones who's played a handful of games in the NFL?
Yeah, Mac Jones, there were times where he didn't look that bad in Jacksonville. And we still remember with the Patriots, he played okay. It was Belichick's kind of winding down his career, and there were circumstances out of his control. I think first and foremost, you're going to see the Niners and Shanahan kind of lean on Christian McCaffrey. He played 75% of their snaps last week, and 22 rushes, 69 yards, 9 catches, 73 yards there, and I think he's going to be the guy that makes the engine go. So they're going to try to get him going. Obviously, the Saints, a lot of holes on his team. We talk about them in terms of their roster and could they win, 3-4 games. We'll see. I thought actually Rattler didn't play that bad, and you have Olave kind of going in and out of the lineup. But they do have some weapons. But I expect the Niners to lean on McCaffrey. And then the defense, Fred Warner's their guy. He's making plays all over the place. So it's going to be a close game, but I'll go with the Niners in a win.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they can move the ball a little bit. Julian Blackmon, the safety for the Saints, going to have surgery on that injured shoulder. So now you got a rookie, Jonas. I think it's a Jonas Sanker to make his first start. He's impressed, but we'll see. The Saints, a little pressure on them. Haven't started 0-2 since 2017. Here's a number for you, a little nugget. Niners coach Kyle Shanahan, 16-25 ATS against the spread with quarterbacks other than Purdy and handsome Jimmy G. It's got the one thing that stands out with this game, I'm actually thinking about hammering the under. It's low. It's one of the lowest of the weekends. Steelers and Seahawks is low too, but 40.5. So I think this is going to be a low scoring affair. And I'm not touching that 3.5 as bad as the Saints are. All right. How about this matchup? Jets looked really good to open up the season against the Steelers offensively. Had a couple gaffes in that one, some miscues. I told you they were going to cut that kid. We talked about it. Aaron Glenn didn't waste any time. You're not gonna have mistakes and miscues and last. They are getting a large number, 6.5. The Bills are laying 6.5. Now, this isn't college, so I know for a fact guys are going to start tweeting in emotional letdown. Bills down, big against The Ravens open up the season. Henry gets a fumble. Josh Allen goes off. Your game ball, my game ball as well. Now you go down and you take on an AFC East rival in the New York Jets. These two teams can't stand each other. But to me, this is more or less about, that Jets defense. Can they slow down that Buffalo Bills offense?
Yeah, and it's going to be on Quentin Williams and the rest of the guys on that defense. Sauce Gardner is going to have to do a good job in terms of, controlling the outside. We saw Coleman kind of take a step up for the Bills. It had some nice catches in the game. Obviously, Secure is going to kind of work the middle. Cook is their guy other than Josh Allen. They're going to try to make plays. And the thing is I see with this Bills team is the leadership. They've really solidified, this is our year. You know what I mean? They have this belief, and you saw that as they were down last week by 15 or more points, and they still kept coming. And the great thing about the Jets is, they played great against the Steelers. It kind of was, to me, was like, all right, what's wrong with the Steelers? You know what I mean? Because
Jets should have won that game.
They let them around, and the Steelers won the game on a long field goal, but the Jets. Fields played good, and you just wonder, okay, which Justin Fields is going to show up? Is he going to be able to run the football the way that he was last week? And I think that the Bills' defense will get after him, Russo and the rest of those guys. So I think the Bills win this one. 6.5, 7 points. That's a lot of points to cover, though. On the road, I'd probably say take the Jets in the points, but the Bills win the game.
If there's a week where the Jets, really look at the film, then look what Baltimore, with their rushing attack, what Henry was able to do, and Lamar Jackson. Like, the Jets should be able to run the ball. Buffalo gave up 238 rushing yards. I mean, that's, and the Jets put up the fourth most rushing yards in week 182. So, you got Ed Oliver coming off a big game, coming off that edge. The other number, the Jets need to get touchdowns, right? They've always had issues scoring against the Bills. They've been held under 23 points in the past 12 meetings. I mean, that is a nasty, yucky type of number. And the Bills have covered 3 straight meetings against the Jets, and I think that trend continues. Maybe the Jets move the ball, but I don't think they're going to be able to get and punch it in the end zone. But I like Buffalo laying the 6.5.
It's going to be a fun watch, and Josh Allen, I think he definitely is going to put on Superman cape again, and it's going to be up to Justin Fields to match him. I just don't see that happening.
Seattle and Pittsburgh doesn't really strike me as a sexy game, nor does Cleveland and Baltimore. That line's very high, 11.5. But I do like a couple of these 4 o'clock, and I want to revert back to a couple 1 o'clock games before we close it out. I like Denver on the road against Indianapolis. Denver's laying 1.5. The Colts should have, Denver should have covered if Payne goes for that field goal last week. That line was 8.5. They win it by 8. Go figure. Back your play on that one. That's a bad beat for Q. But the Colts, we were high on them heading into week 1. It was one of the teams that we thought were going to win outright against Miami. And Daniel Jones, now, you've mentioned all week, does Justin Fields revert back to Justin Fields? Does Daniel Jones revert back to Danny Nichols, not Dimes?
It's going to be an interesting one, Q, because he played so well and so efficient. And they do have some weapons with Pittman and Taylor and offensive lines coming along. The thing is, the Broncos, I think they're going to be a little angry about their effort. Yes, they won the football game and over the Titans, but they were just sloppy. I mean, penalties, but the defense still has the teeth. They had 6 sacks, and other than lining up over Nelson, I think they're going to be coming for Daniel Jones, and they're going to look for him to get pressure and make some mistakes. So I think the Broncos win this game. It's probably going to be a close one, though. It may come down to the kickers, and Peyton has real confidence in his guy. So I think Broncos win this one, and they continue that ascension. We talked about them challenging for the top of that AFC West this week.
Especially knowing that the Chiefs have the Eagles, a game that we will highlight. Before we take a timeout, I want to go back to one more of those 1 o'clock games. I am curious to get your thoughts. And only from this standpoint, with the Giants, again, going back to Russell Wilson, might be the last start of his, he's a Hall of Fame quarterback. I can't find any positives with the Giants offensively, and just the numbers speak for themselves. Dak Prescott, I mentioned it at the onset of the show, 33-9 in divisional games. He has owned the Giants. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Brian Daboll's 4-14-1 in 19 career NFC East games. So it's got to start and end by winning the games in the division. I don't see that happening. I think the Giants get embarrassed here. I think the Dallas Cowboys are ticked off. They thought they had that game against the Philadelphia Eagles. You get the fumble, you get the rain delay, the Carter issue. They were right in that game. The Eagles didn't look like world beaters. The Cowboys let them off the hook, and I think they're going to take it out big time on the Giants. And I know Prescott kind of had a rough week from a fantasy standpoint, a stat standpoint, but to me, this has the makings of 28-10 Dallas.
Yeah, I'm looking for a big number here from Dallas Cowboys. Q, they like to feast on teams that are under 500 and who they perceive are not their equal. And last week, as you said, that was a game in Philadelphia they could have won. And I know, in particularly CD Lamb, he's going to be looking forward to this game. He had those four drops, three in the second half, particularly that one late in the fourth that could have got them in a good position to kind of maybe tie or win the game. And yeah, Dak Prescott likes to put up big stats against defenses. Defenses are kind of subpar, but as long as they block Burns, as long as they keep Carter out of the backfield, I think that this is a big win for Dallas Cowboys. Talking about Russell Wilson, last week 17-37, 168. That's just not going to get it done. And I think the Giants eventually will turn the page to Jackson Dart, and this will be another thing on the resume. Say, okay, Russ, go be that good quality backup, a guy they think he can be. So, I think Dallas wins this one big.
Yeah, and no Thomas again for the Giants, so they don't have confidence in that offensive line. I think when they stabilize a little bit, then you'll probably see Jackson Dart out there. All right, Panthers and the Cardinals. I thought my Panthers were the upset special. Arizona laying 6.5. Arizona is one of my both these teams are my dark horse teams to make the playoffs and maybe have a little bit of a run. Listen, it wasn't pretty at all by Arizona. They get the win against the Saints. They cover that number. They missed some opportunities in that game, to be quite honest with you. And I also, I think Arizona should hang their hat on their ground game. Whether it's going to be Connor, whether it's going to be the kid Trey Benson, the young kid out of Florida State, Kyler Murray with his legs. To me, that's their identity. And I think if they can run the ball with success, then it should open up that playbook and that offense for Kyler Murray and some of these weapons. This is maybe the weekend too. You see Starvin Marvin kind of get into the action, but 6.5, even though they're at home, the total is 44.5. I'm leaning towards teasing this game and just basically dropping that line down, and maybe say bookending it with, say, the Ravens, because at least if I go down from 11.5, 6, I catch it for the Ravens. All they need to do is win by a touchdown, and then Arizona just basically needs to win the game outright. So that's kind of my thought process in this one, bookending it, teasing, which I typically don't like to do, but I don't have the utmost confidence in the offense clicking just yet. And we kind of saw it across the board, right? Only 3 games last week when they hit the over. So I'm going to tease this game down. I'll bookend it with, say, the Ravens, and away I go. But I do like Arizona to win it.
Yeah, Q, this is another one of my survivor pool money line games that I was looking at. I think the Cardinals win this one. I also like the Ravens a lot in terms of the money line this week. And when you look at this matchup, I don't know about Carolina, man. Young, 18-35. He had 2 interceptions, just looked kind of tentative out there. They do have Tech McMillan that they're kind of excited about for the Carolina Panthers. But the Cardinals got to make sure they protect Kyler Murray. He was sacked in the game 6 times. So, he was kind of moving around, running for his life there a little bit. But he expect him to get the ball to McBride, who had 61 yards receiving and 6 catches last week, and Harrison, as you said. But, yeah, Benson and Connor, if they can get going for the Cardinals, that'll help them a lot. But they also have to cut down on their penalties. They had 9 penalties for the Cardinals. So I expect them to win, but this one may be a little closer to that line there.
Yeah, and if you're Carolina, I mean, both teams had to deal with the weather, the lightning, the delay. This is a 3-3 game against Jacksonville after one quarter. And then offensively for Carolina in the second quarter, 2 plays pick, 9 plays punt, 5 plays fumble, then the end of the half. And that game was done because it was 20-3 Jacksonville going into the locker room. So Carolina, point is, you got to get off to a little better of a fast start in this one. Eagles and the Chiefs. Here you go. So it's Super Bowl rematch. That line is dropped, by the way. You'll see it on the Q ticker. Open at 3.5. It's dropped now all the way to a 1.5, 1.5. So a little more money now coming down. I should say, when you think about it, on Kansas City, that line's moving. And wow, I didn't think we were going to see the Eagles should be favored in this one, and rightfully so. I wasn't, again, looking at this 2.5, 3. I thought the game was going to be right around 1.5, 2. I think it's going to sit. Now, look, Hurts dominated Mahomes. We know about the 40-22 Super Bowl win in New Orleans. He was unbelievable. You got Saquon. You got the offensive line. Kansas City is just a banged-up team. Obviously, you lose a wide receiver, too, on opening day. Money line right now, -115 for Kansas City. I'm sorry, -105 Kansas City, -115. Actually, I'm seeing now the line has dropped to a half a point, total 46.5. So the game opened with the Chiefs favored by 1.5. So think about all the money in Vegas that's shuffled in hands and has gone on the Eagles to make that line pop and then come right back down.
Yeah, Q. I was shocked, to be honest with you. I know the Chiefs are banged up, but you just don't see them as a home dog in Arrowhead. And let's not forget last year, 8-0 at home, and they always found a way to win. So the Eagles, yes, they won and last week, but it was not dominant. There were some things you're like, like that opposite corner, other than Q Mitchell, is going to be something that you're going to watch all season. Whether it's a Dory Jackson, whether it's Bennett, or Ringo, they got to find somebody to cover on that side. And then the defensive line was not getting the heat that they were known for. So they signed Zadarius Smith. We'll see if they're able to duplicate what they did in the Super Bowl in terms of attacking that Chiefs offensive line. But those 6 sacks that they got in the Super Bowl, a lot of them were against Tooney, playing out of position at that tackle position. Simmons is now there at left tackle. He's played pretty well. For the Chiefs, though, you got to watch Taylor. Hit a lot of penalties for him last week at the right tackle position. Mahomes played really well. They got to find a running game, though. Pacheco really was not moving the chains a lot and been back and forth on this game. But it's hard to bet against Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, particularly at home. I think they may pull a surprise here. It's going to take, Kelsey maybe to have another big day. Hollywood Brown, he had a ton of catches last week. Maybe he gets into the mix, but it's going to be close. But I can't bet against Mahomes in this one.
So you mentioned the corner position, right? So Dory Jackson is going to start outside corner, outside opposite Mitchell, and that's what Vic Fangio said. So that, to me, is not the most ringing endorsement for Jackson. He gave up over 100 yards. He missed a couple tackles as well. Not good. So, there's a little volatility there at the safety spot as well. So we know the Eagles have had issues over the years covering tight ends. Obviously, these teams have familiarity. I think this could be a Kelsey game. And look, Kansas City knows what it's like to be a defending Super Bowl champ. So they know that the Eagles coming in as defending champs. The Eagles are the hunted, not the hunters anymore. The revenge factor. Kansas City didn't really even show up. You had that flag early on in the game, and everyone said, "Here we go. It's going to be Kansas City's day." And then, boom, you get the pick six, going to the locker room. For all intents and purposes, the game was done. And I get what you're saying with Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. I mean, the numbers speak for themselves. When you're talking about ATS, Kansas City has been favored in 22 straight home games. That's the longest active streak in the NFL. Now, is this going to be that 23-20, 27-26 type of game? You look at the predictions, the model says Kansas City right around 52. Man, I feel as though the Eagles want to come in on the road and smack them around and just say to the rest of the NFL world, last Super Bowl is not a fluke, right? It wasn't a fluke. If Patrick Mahomes has time and he's upright, they're going to be able to throw. My concern is if Kansas City can't run the football. That's the problem. If they start, if there's no threat, you don't really need to stack the box. You take Kelsey out of the game, then who's going to beat you over the top for Kansas City?
Yeah, you're talking about Juju Smith-Schuster, and Thornton has that top end speed, but Mahomes missed him twice deep last week, and they just don't have that connection. They really miss Rashee Rice, and that's going to hurt him. And I'm hearing word that he's probably not going to play with that shoulder injury. So you're talking about Juju Smith-Schuster, Brown, and whoever else they can kind of patchwork together. Maybe Kelsey has that game, as we were saying, to work the middle. But the Eagles, Bond and Campbell in the middle for them in terms of their linebackers. That was always Achilles' heel for the Eagles, but these linebackers are playmakers. So it's going to be an interesting chess match between Kelsey and those guys.
We'll continue along with the late games, and then you got 8:20 Sunday Night Football. Atlanta versus Minnesota. Minnesota, no business beating the Bears to open up the season, but they did it on the road with J.J. McCarthy. First start, NFC offensive honors, player of the week. He played exceptionally well, accounted for 21 points in that fourth quarter. Minnesota's laying 3.5. Maybe the Falcons showed you a little something with Penix throwing for close to 300 yards. That was the game that you can argue as a Falcons fan would have been a great way to start the season. You're down 3. You got a pretty reliable kicker. You couldn't get it done in that regard. Now you got to go on the road the next 2 weeks, Minnesota and then Carolina. Then you see Washington and then Buffalo. So, look, if you're Atlanta and you want to make something of your season, you got to stockpile a couple wins here early.
This is a great game. I mean, Sunday Night Football is always huge drama, and the Falcons are going to come in there feeling like they should have won last week. Like you were saying, Younghoe Koo misses that very makeable field goal. Now, they're a little banged up. Drake London has a shoulder injury. Mooney, their other receivers, kind of banged up too. We'll see what Penix can do. He played very well down the stretch last week. And the Vikings, it was a story of basically 3 quarters and then one spectacular quarter at the end. They kind of woke up late, they're a little banged up on defense, but it is going to take McCarthy and Jones and their other Jordan Madison to kind of make things happen in terms of that offense. So it's going to be an interesting matchup. Been back and forth on this one. I think the Falcons kind of rebound. I'm kind of believing in them. I think, the Vikings.
You have them as a playoff team.
Yes. And the Vikings caught lightning about late in that game, as you were saying. Everybody thought the game was over, and particularly the way McCarthy was playing. The Falcons defense has a little bit more teeth now with Jesse Bates and those 2 rookies that they drafted, and I think they're going to make some plays. So they got to cover Justin Jefferson, obviously, but this should be a fun game to watch.
Everyone thought it was over except the person that decided in-game live betting, let me get that next touchdown, J.J. McCarthy. Thank you very much. Lloyd Vance, kind enough to join us, NFL writer, historian, and, of course, insider. Does a great job hosting Lloyd Vance's Insider Football. You hear that show every Monday, 8 to 9 on SR 102.9 FM The Game. You also hear Lloyd during the week on Q with myself and, of course, BYP. And a little nugget. As I came on, Back Your Play, we might be airing Saturdays and Sundays on NY48 WWON. So as they say, Lloyd, the check is soon to be in the mail. It's just a question of when it shall be deposited. So we get through that Sunday Night Football. How about this? We do have a double dip on Monday Night Football. I was never a fan of the double dip, to be quite honest with you. But we're going to get it. Tampa Bay and the Texans, the Chargers and the Raiders. That Chargers and Raiders game is a lot more appealing than that first game. But we'll go through Tampa, Texans. We mentioned Tampa, a little stagnant with the offense. Lucky to get that win to open up the season. Your concern now is with the Texans and that offense. Now they are laying 2.5, and the total is 42.5. It's a very low total for 2 teams that you would think should easily put up 23, 25, 26 points respectively. But man, I did not like what I saw from the Houston Texans to open up the season. I mean, you're limited to 9 points. Is that more or less about the Rams and their defense, or do you believe there's some underlying issues here with the Houston Texans?
Yeah, the Texans, I thought they would win the division again, but it's going to be a struggle. This team, their offensive line is not playing well, and they just got rid of one of their best players, Laramie Tunsil. They sent him to Washington, and 2 of 9 on third downs, 11 penalties. just did not look right. And a big thing also is their running game. Nick Chubb, great story, him coming back from injury, but he's just not explosive at this time in his career, and they're missing Joe Mixon. So they need to find a way to get the ball to Collins and the rest of those guys down the field. The Rams took it to him. So now you're looking at a Bucs team. Ibuka, incredible last week. I mean, this guy, 2 touchdowns in the game, and I think he's going to probably make some plays against Houston. We'll see what they do in terms of Stingley if they try to shadow him with him. But I'm expecting the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to win this one.
And remember, too, we always talk about a defensive guru in Todd Bowles. C.J. Stroud, his rookie season, lit them up for 470 yards and 5 touchdowns. That was kind of his coming out party. So for a fact that they're going to try to limit the explosive plays. The Texans come in this one, 8th highest explosive play rate at 14.4% in 2024. And again, Falcons hit the Bucs with a couple big plays early last week. I think Tampa's defense is going to get to him, and it wouldn't shock me if the kid was sacked 4 or 5 times, because they're going to go blitz heavy. They're going to try to rattle him. I know at times you leave yourself on an island, so to speak, when you're very blitz heavy like that. Your corners are pretty much left on an island. I think a lot of the play is going to come down to in the trenches. I think they're going to disrupt Stroud. I'm a little concerned with Houston. I don't like what I saw to open up the season. I know it's very early in the season. And how about this? If you're a Bucs fan, Todd Bowles is 1 win shy, becoming the 5th coach in Bucs history with 30 wins, including the playoffs. Now, I don't know where you want to hang your hat, but here's the number that I love. And this is what we do on BYP. Texans are 6-15 ATS as home favorites since 2019, 10-22-1 ATS overall as favorites. Give me Tampa Bay winning this game by at least 5 points.
Yeah, as long as McLaughlin, their field goal kicker, has a solid game. He missed extra point last week. They should be all right, and I expect a lot of Baker Mayfield in this one.
Yep, I would concur with you on that one. I mean, Baker's been known to have those games where he just goes 30 of 38 for 366 and just absolutely goes off. Chargers, a big win, and oh, by the way, listen, you get a couple of days off, a couple of days rest because it's Thursday night football. Or what was that? That was what was that, Friday night football, right? But again, the trip in Brazil, tough spot. So I do have to factor in the travel. So forgive me. But anyway, they're a road favorite, laying 3 plus the hook, 3.5. The total is 46.5. And then the Raiders, it wasn't pretty. But again, Geno Smith offensively carried the load. They beat the Pats to open up the season 20-13. I'll give you some numbers in a moment, but as you kind of gloss over this one, the Chargers, to me, I'm a big Herbert fan. I like what Harbaugh's been able to do. I think this team's going to be a playoff team.
Yeah, it's interesting, because the other 3 teams in AFC West won except the Chiefs. So
Yes.
It's a situation where who's going to start stepping up being king of the mountain. And the Chargers were impressive. I know, as you said, the game was in Brazil, but Herbert did a great job. I mean, he threw for 318 yards, 3 TDs. He was rushing the football. You started seeing Quentin Johnston making plays, Keenan Allen back in business, and this Chargers team is showing some teeth. Good win for the Raiders going across country against the Patriots, and Geno Smith as well. So back and forth in this one, but I'm leaning towards the Chargers.
Brock Bowers did not practice on Thursday, right? So he had that knee injury in week 1.
Right.
So, again, we don't know if he's going to be 100%. That's a big-time vital weapon for Geno Smith. Chargers are looking for the first-rate win against an AFC West opponent. They've gone 3-10 in their previous 13 games against divisional marks. And here's the 2 head coaches, right? Harbaugh and Carroll. They've kind of had that decades feud, if you will, for a long, long time, going back to their college days in the Pac-10. I think you might get an old-fashioned AFC West type of, knock around type of game. I don't believe this is going to be a high-scoring game, to be quite honest with you. I know some people have this as a 35-30. I'm leaning towards 27-24, which in essence would be somewhat high-scoring. I see some guys chiming in 30, to 27. Kevin C. just tweeted at me. He thinks this game actually is going to be 38-35. The Chargers have a percentage chance now 60.4 of winning this game. Carroll is 67.43.5 ATS in his career as an underdog. To me, it comes back to the quarterbacking play. I'm going to trust Justin Herbert, who, as you mentioned, Lloyd, looked sharp against the Kansas City Chiefs over Geno Smith. I think they're going to cause a couple turnovers. I think you might get that pick six. I do like the Chargers to win this game outright.
Yeah, I think Henley and the defense for the Chargers caused some turnovers because let's not forget Geno Smith threw double-digit interceptions last season, and he had one last week in the win. So I think the Chargers get some turnovers and win this.
All right, before we start to wrap it up, Thursday Night Football, that's another big win for the Green Bay Packers, easily covering the number against Washington. Jaden Daniels did not look particularly well. Austin Eckler goes down. He's feared to have a torn ACL. That's a brutal, brutal blow for Washington. And then conversely, if you're a Packers fan, they looked absolutely dynamite for the second straight week, but they're also going to lose a big-time playmaker, which we'll get into in a moment, which is it's really unfortunate because you don't want to see these injuries coming down that fast. But it is confirmed that Jaden Reed broke his collarbone diving for that pass in Thursday night's win against Washington. But I'm telling you right now, I'll get you the odds in a moment. But that was a very dominating performance, especially on the offensive side of the ball by the Green Bay Packers.
No, Q, I agree with you, and they're starting to have that look. Okay, the road may go through Green Bay, and you think
Crazy.
about the weather getting bad, and this team is complete. They can run the football with Jacobs. The Kraft's coming along at the tight end position. Yes, they are banged up at the receiver, but Dobbs is still there, and they have a bunch of good young talent coming along behind them. Offensive line with Eldon Jenkins and those guys up front doing a nice job. They were dominant. And conversely, Washington, you're starting to wonder, okay, Daniels does need some help. McLaren did have a couple catches here and there,
Yep.
but mostly it was dink and dunk to Zach Ertz. Very short passes, not moving the football. You talk about the Austin Eckler injury, that's going to hurt them a lot. JCM, he's a young guy. We'll see what he's going to be able to do for them. But Washington, they're going to have to clean some things up. And a big thing, Q, they can't change is they're very old. The oldest team in the National Football League. You talk about some of the guys on their defense, Von Miller and Bobby Wagner, Lattimore. They're just not making the plays. So, yeah, good win for Green Bay, and Washington may be trending in the wrong direction.
Yeah, and speaking of the trending, so after that come from behind win by Buffalo, they ascended on top for the odds-on favorite to win the Super Bowl plus 700, actually tied with the Ravens. Green Bay now plus 750. Obviously, there's movement since they acquired Micah Parsons, who's been disruptive. We've seen it, right? So there you go. The Bills, at last, as I refresh as we speak, plus 500. So you're betting 10 to win 60. The Ravens at plus 600. Eagles, who we'll see at 415, 425 against Kansas City on Sunday, plus 750. We mentioned the Packers. The Chiefs right now are plus 1,200. And after the loss last night, Washington is sitting at plus 1,700. And then, of course, you got the Drex, the Giants, the Saints, and the Browns kind of rounding out at plus 30,000 all the way to plus 60,000. So right now, it seems a lot of money already creeping on the Bills as that standalone favorite. And again, you erase a 15-point deficit, with a couple minutes left in a ridiculously entertaining game against Baltimore, then obviously, your odds are going to, they're going to move up a little bit. I know we are heading into week 2. I think there's panic with the Giants. I think there's panic in Miami. I think there's panic in Cleveland, not because we expected these teams to be good, because they have so many question marks and their coaches are on the hot seat. I know you mentioned Miami, but give me a team or two as we start to wrap it up where you say to yourself, Q, I know it's only week 2, got it back to play. This is a must win for these guys.
Must win, definitely. Baltimore Ravens, obviously inferior opponent, but they have to win this game to kind of keep pace with the rest of the AFC. That was a bad loss against the Bills, and it could kind of turn their season around. So I think the Ravens, that's a must win for them. In terms of the Bengals, we always talk about these bad starts by them, Q, and yeah, they got out of Cleveland with a win, a 1-point victory, thanks to probably a kicker for the Browns, but they got the win. This is a big win against Jacksonville, both 1-0. So must-win situation for the Bengals there. And then I'll throw one more in there. Kansas City Chiefs, they can't afford to lose this rematch against the Philadelphia Eagles and go down 0-2. And then you're talking about, even if Rice comes back, they may be on the road in the playoffs. So, yeah, big situation for the Chiefs as well.
All right, this just came across the wire. Oliver's going to be out. He's ruled out with that ankle injury for the Jets. And the Dolphins apparently had a closed-door meeting after their blowout loss. I mean, I know it's rare that some of these teams we speak of fire head coaches in the middle of the season, but I'm telling you, if Hill doesn't get his catches and his receptions and his yards and his numbers, and he starts barking back and forth, I don't think this head coach makes it out of September, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah, the bloom is off the rose with Mike McDaniel. Remember, he was going to change the game, with all the motion he was running, and team made the playoffs. But ever since that loss in the playoffs, this has just not been the same team. It was very cold in Kansas City that day, and they just have never warmed up since.
All right, there you have it. Once again, we ripped through week 2 with our betting lines, our insight, our picks. Always great to have our good friend Lloyd Vance joining us on Back Your Play with Q. And again, give him a follow at Lloyd Vance. He hosts Lloyd Vance's Insider Football every Monday night, 8 to 9. He'll get you situated all the week in action. He'll start to look ahead to the Monday night game in the week that is coming up, and that's on SR 1029 FM The Game, Coastal Sports Digital Network based out of Florida, and our good friend Angel Martinez. Lloyd joins me during the week as well on Q. He's going to pop on our Fridays edition as well, our Football Fridays edition. You can capture us every Sunday, and as I mentioned, we are hearing potentially Saturdays as well on NY48 WWON. And my friend, as we like to say on the show, because it's always for entertainment purposes, we always preface that entertainment purposes. But if you got a little coin, if you got a little shekel, if you got a little dinero, if you say it, you play it. If you back it, you're going to stack it. Appreciate you joining me on another edition of Back Your Play. And we will do it again next weekend, my friend. Always appreciate you for a couple moments. Thank you.
All right, Q, thanks for having me on.
All right, there you have it. Our good friend Lloyd Vance. He does a fantastic job. He joins me during the week on Q as well as Back Your Play with Q. And we always appreciate the good folks tuning us in on the YouTube channel. You can follow me along. Again, very easy to do, at Rich Q, on X, on IG, TikTok, Rich Q on the mic. And again, you've been listening to BYP, presented by our good friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee. 20% off your first purchase, Fresh Roasted Coffee. Use the promo code BYP20. And as we get you situated for your pregame show, whatever national outlet, if you move away from NY48, but we encourage you to keep it locked in nonetheless. We will be back on the air next weekend. As I mentioned, we are working hard to perhaps get BYP on twice during the weekends, and we're very ecstatic about that. We might even throw in a little college football plays and picks as well, and just not the NFL. But as we wrap it up, we always like to say money management, be smart, bet with your head, don't bet over it. If you're just doing it for entertainment purposes, you have that bankroll, you manage it, you have a little fun. And as we always like to close it out, if you say it, you play it. If you back it, you're going to stack it. All right. Appreciate you guys keeping us locked in for another edition of Back Your Play with Q. I'm Rich Quiñones. We'll talk to you Monday to Friday, 5 to 6 on Q on my YouTube channel, XSR 1029 FM. And as always, from the good folks at NY48 WWON, have a wonderful sports week and enjoy the football games. We will talk to you next weekend. As always, be safe, be sound, and of course, hasta luego, buen día.